Hello, this is Dr. Erica Ollinger. I'm the Crisis Team School Psychologist at the Oklahoma State Department of Education. If you're working on a difficult project, it's a good idea to have a partner with you to help you get it done. When it comes to school safety, forming partnerships with other community organizations is essential. Reaching out to other organizations and building relationships is key to this idea. Get to know the leaders and members of your community and develop memorandums of understanding to solidify your relationship with potential partners. Law enforcement, mental health providers, juvenile affairs, and fire departments are all organizations that can lend support. Each partnering organization will bring their own expertise, so having input from all will strengthen your emergency operations plan. They can also help you define what everyone's roles will be when an emergency occurs. Whether you need help with emergency planning or dealing with an emergency, your relationships with community partners can be valuable for ensuring your school's safety. For more information, contact the Office of School Safety and Security by either phone or email, or visit our page at the Oklahoma State Department of Education website. Hello.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'd really like to welcome you today to this webinar. Ultimately, I got one goal for you, right? And that's to identify your gaps. I think maybe you will find some of those gaps today, and we want to bridge those. We want to help you think outside the box and or connect you with some opportunities that you may not have thought of to help bridge those gaps. And when I mean gaps, I mean, who have you not talked to in your community, right? You may hear about some things today that you haven't thought about, or you might be able to identify some of those partners that you just haven't sat down and made that cup of coffee with. And one of those partners you heard on, I want to pitch for her real quick, Dr. Erica Ollinger. You just heard her on that video. OSDE has recently created a crisis response and recovery team. Dr. Ollinger is heading that team up. My folks are a part of that. Ultimately, it's there as a resource. If you're a school personnel, I know we have a diverse audience today. We also got a lot of emergency management. But reach out, right? I think from any side of the fence, that from the state level, you're gonna find that there are partners local and close to you, and then from that state level itself. So we hope that you use Dr. Ollinger's team, our team, and then find those areas that you haven't thought about, and at the local level, use this webinar as an excuse, right? Say, I heard Dr. Swearingen talking about her flood at Weber's Falls, and I had to call you, whatever partner that may be. But I really hope that that's what comes of this, and that's what happens. So my name is John Parker. I'm Executive Director for the Office of School Safety here at the State Department of Ed, and very glad to have you. Jason? I got you. The schools, we're literally the bedrock of the communities. I think whether that's urban, suburban, or rural. And I taught rural, and the school is everything to those folks. That's where all even the community, they use the school for their everyday needs. And I think that this is where it's so easy to draw on those partners and to plan and do this ahead of time. That may be the biggest one. So we got two speakers for you today, and I'm really proud to have them. They are excellent and bringing us a lot of good info. And first up is Dr. Dixie Swearingen. Dr. Swearingen, former superintendent of Weber's Falls Public Schools. She retired earlier this year after serving as superintendent there for 7 years. All total, though, and this is so awesome, 29 years in education, right? Dr. Swearingen is going to cover the topic that's probably, I know it, I hate to say near and dear, Dixie, but I know that I know you're passionate about what happened to you with that flood when you had control of Weber's school system there. So, and how those community partners played such a role in your experience. So, with that, welcome, Dr. Swearingen. Thank you for being on today.
Thank you very much, John. It is a pleasure to be on today, so thank you for inviting me to share my experiences with you. I will tell you one thing. You can't prepare for a flood to the extent that we had in Weber's Falls, but you do know what to do with it. So you know you need to open your school right back up. You see some pictures of some excuse me for this. There's a business right there that you see, and then you see inside one of our classrooms, and then you can see our ag building, and then you can tell how far up we had to cut our sheetrock and how we had to gut everything in the main classroom building. But let me tell you a little bit. One, Weber's Falls had it wasn't just a school that was impacted. In fact, it was every school building was infiltrated by the flood. As you can see there, you can see our school campus is circled in blue. The first picture that you saw on the previous slide, that is a picture of my dad's store, or formerly was my dad's store. The dock on my dad's store was about 4 feet high. Now, one of the reasons that a lot of people would ask him, Robert, why in the world do you have your dock so high? And there were 2 separate flooding occasions that is heard about. Now there's 3 in Weber's Falls. The first was the flood of 43 that devastated the entire community, or almost devastated the entire community, like the flood we recently had. That dock was built higher than the flood waters of 1943. And if you look at that first picture there, the flood waters went up 18 to 24 inches higher than the flood of 43. Now, this is after putting in the navigation system. Of course, in 43, there was no navigation system. There was no flood control, just up and down the river, there was flooding. Well, the other flood was the flood of 1986. The flood of 1986, the Corps of Engineers came into Weber's Falls. They marked all of the houses about how high the floodwaters would be coming in. And, some of it was 5 feet up on the houses. The flood of 86 barely even broke the banks of the Arkansas River. On May 21st, we got a phone call from the city that said that at noon the following day, the floodwaters were going to start penetrating Weber's Falls. But it shouldn't be any more than a couple of feet, a foot or a foot and a half above the flood of 86. Well, I'm telling you, we really did not think that the floodwaters were going to do what you see on this slide right here. Now, the other thing that you have to remember is that, we're talking about community partnerships. And if you look at that picture right there, almost every building in Weber's Falls was impacted by floodwaters. Some not as much, but most of them were impacted severely. And you don't have a community. I mean, the only businesses were flooded by floodwaters also. And so it's not only whether or not you have community relationships, you really have to have those relationships outside of the community. Another thing that I want you to realize is, I'm telling you, I've always hated to deal with insurance. I took on the same insurance policies and covered basically the same thing that the former superintendent did, meaning both the property insurance and the flood insurance. Didn't raise the flood insurance any, wasn't at maximum flood insurance coverage. But I was under the impression that my property insurance was going to cover everything. I wondered why in the world they were asking me, did it come from the roof or did it come from the ground? Because if it comes from the ground, that's your national flood insurance will cover that if you have it on those particular buildings. And let me tell you, for the type of flooding that we had, even with the maximum coverage of the National Flood Insurance, you are not covered enough. It will not cover all of your expenses. That's where the community partnerships come in. That's why it's important to have people not only within your community, but surrounding your community that will, you need to have those relationships with them. I'm telling you, had it not been from people all across the United States, if it had not been for schools throughout the Oklahoma, there is no way that we could have put our building back, torn it down, put it back in the amount of time that we did, or even been able to do it, because the insurance would not cover it at all. Another thing that you need to realize is if you live anywhere close to where it might flood, you need to know what your flood zones are. I learned very quickly what flood zone X was and what flood zone AE. X is bad, AE will be covered by your property insurance. The building that you see right there, that is our main classroom building. Because the southeast corner was clipped by the flood map, it was considered to be in the flood X, the entire building. Now the building just north of it was in flood zone AE. And in fact, that's two buildings put together. They were built two separate times and joined together. Both of them were in flood AE except for the southeast corner. But because that southeast corner was clipped by the floodplain, you really need to understand that the entire building is considered in the floodplain. So even though you may have $2 million worth of property insurance or $2,500,000, whatever it is, that will not cover your building. And your flood insurance for the maximum amount that you can get is $250,000. So just think about property that you have insured for $2,500,000 is only going to be covered by $250,000. You really need to understand insurance, and you really need to have those community partnerships. Had it not been for Cherokee Nation, State Department of Oklahoma, the schools across the schools across Oklahoma, if it had not been for disaster groups such as the Mennonites and the Baptist and the Latter-day Saints, the other faith-based groups, we would have been in a lot of trouble. Now, one of the things that you will note that you, as a superintendent, you'll find out whenever you start contacting these disaster groups, they're going to say something like, well, we help the individuals in their homes. And I finally looked at one individual and I said, I want to tell you this. There is not one person, not only within the city proper, but also in the rural community, that is not affected by what is happening at this school. We have city events at our school. The school is the center of the community. Anybody that lives in a rural area, you understand it even more so than those of you who live in a suburban and an urban area. The city is, the school is the center of the community. You will have grandparents and former grandparents of students and grandparents of former students that still come to athletic events, because that is what's happening in Weber's Falls, the activities that happen there at that school. So when I talked with him, I said, you will help more people in this community if you help me get this building together. And I ended up with between 80 and 125, especially with the Mennonite group, that showed up on a Friday and Saturday. And that's how my school anything that was covered with flood insurance, that's where I took all of my my volunteer groups. We went into those buildings that was covered or that did not have any coverage of the national flood insurance, because I knew that's where the need was. Plus, those buildings that were in zone AE, which you can see right there, those were in the 500-year floodplain. Those buildings were covered by insurance, and I did have a restoration company that I had already contracted in for that, and they were coming in. Now let me tell you a little bit about how much water penetrated our buildings. In the main school building, in the main building that was clipped by the floodplain, we had around 18 inches of water come into that building. At least that's where the water level indicated that it was. But by the time we could get into that building, the mold was already up to 4.5 feet. By the time we could go in and start mucking out, it was up 6 feet. Most generally what you do whenever you are flooding, whenever you are taking care of or cutting out sheetrock and things, you cut up to 4 feet, or you cut up 2 feet above the floodwaters. By the time we got in there, it was 4 feet above floodwaters. So in the very first picture, you saw that we had gutted everything. We had to take out the ceiling tiles. We had to take out everything because it had sat in that water and the humidity in Oklahoma in May. It had sit in there and the mold was just everywhere. So we ended up basically gutting the entire building. Now you see that that's our event center, our gymnasium. We had about 12 inches of water at least. There was probably 12 to 4 inches of water that went in. And that's what it did to our gym floors. And it's funny because the chairs were sitting just like that, but everything around it was buckling. In the center, you see our library. We had raised our books up. You can see that the bottom shelves were empty. But you know, when you have floodwaters that come in and start working on particle board shelving, it collapses. And so we lost everything. And it doesn't matter. We thought we had saved some of our library books. We thought we saved some of our textbooks. We didn't save anything that sat in flood water. So you have to be aware of that. Also, whenever someone says there's a flood coming, you need to get everything out. And you've got to remember, May was a very wet month, and the school only had property within Weber's Falls. There was no place to store anything. But if you ever get the warning, take everything out that you can and cover it with visqueen. If nothing else, take it to higher ground and cover it with visqueen. If you had gone to my house right before the flood, you would have seen the buses at my house. You would have seen my brother's equipment from his farm at my house, and you would have seen the church van there. Yeah. Oops, sorry about that. I thought I had that off. Sorry about that. Anyway, so let me tell you, it was just take everything out and take it. Just do what you can to get everything out. But let me tell you, one of the first individuals that I talked to, and I did look her name up, was Dina Arlanus is her name. She's part of the National Disaster Coordinators. And she gave me all of these groups that I could get in contact with. She gave me so many resources that I started making phone calls immediately saying I was impacted by the floodwaters. Cherokee Nation came and said, we can help you move out your furniture if you need to. They also gave donations. We had, after the floodwaters receded, we had volunteer firefighters come from throughout Oklahoma, especially eastern Oklahoma. They brought their brush pumps or brush pumpers. I don't know what, I think that's what you call them. They helped us muck out our buildings, because if you've never been through a flood, the stench and the slime is overwhelming. And they brought, I can't tell you how many brush pumpers came and mucked out, took all of the mud out of the building so that we could start working on it. We had schools from other states come in with their school groups that helped us. We had FFA groups. We had volunteers. We had athletes, football players, basketball teams. All of those individuals came in. We couldn't get as many people from Weber's Falls to come in, because we had families throughout Weber's Falls that were impacted. So we had people even from around the surrounding countryside. They weren't only helping the schools, they were helping the families. We had banks from around Muskogee, Warner, Gore. They came in and helped feed all of our volunteers. I didn't have to spend any money to feed our volunteers. All of that was donated. Blue and Gold, DJ's Meats, they came in and fed our groups. Warner schools and Gore schools, Warner allowed us to store some of the things that we were able to get out into their building. And then Gore schools, they furnished us a place for us to have our office. And so we had so many people that came in. Now, the other thing is, realize that the State Department does have this group and emergency management. Michael Ann, who is part of the team that John is on, she came down and helped me. Michael Teague of emergency management. Oh my goodness. Jeff Smith, Muskogee emergency manager. Thankfully, from the very beginning that I became a superintendent at Weber's Falls, Jeff Smith had been in contact with me. So I had emergency management that was I was on their plan. Thank you, Jesus, I was on their plan. But on the Muskogee County plan, because that's how you get your FEMA funds, is to have that plan. Let me see. But those individuals came in and helped us muck out and bring back. We had, let me tell you this also. If you don't have a relationship with your insurance adjuster, it's really good to have a relationship with them. The underwriters of the flood insurance, my property insurance, told my adjuster that all of Weber's Falls was in the flood zone, meaning the X, the 100-year floodplain. And my insurance adjuster said, no, you are wrong. And so some of the buildings, my cafeteria, my gymnasium, all of those, and my ag classroom and shop, those were all in the flood AE, the 500-year floodplain, in which the underwriter was saying, no, all of it is in zone X. But he pulled up the map and said, you are wrong, and had, and so fortunately he fought that fight for me, and I didn't have to fight that fight. He took the underwriters to battle for me. So it's good to have a relationship with your insurance company and your insurance adjuster. Let me see. We did have we had upwards to 750 volunteers that came in during this period of time. The majority of them did come in when you could see what needed to be done. In other words, we know we have to take this sheetrock out. We know that we have to take the ceiling tiles out. We had around 750 that were there during that period of time. It took someone to coordinate that. And I had a volunteer firefighter that came up to me after they did the muck out, or sprayed all the mud out of the buildings, and said, Dixie, I can take this on for you, but if I take this on for you, I'm running it and you stay out of my way. And he started working with, as I said, I had a group from the Mennonites come in. He started working with them, and he set up individuals that would oversee certain areas. And he did that while I was doing all of the other work, that the paperwork, on the phone call. He took that over. It always helps to have someone that will take that over. And when the majority of that was was done, and he went on about his, went back to his community, I had a nurse that could really crack the whip. And she did a good job of it. For those little small details, she was a detail person. And when we started our bill back, of course, I did have a subcontractor that worked under me, but he was in and out. My nurse was there constantly, and believe she was not on contract. She came in. This was her school. This is where her kids went to school. And so she came in and she oversaw that, even with my custodians. You need to do this, you need to do that. She just pretty much pointed things out. Sometimes it takes someone that has an eye for detail, and she was phenomenal about that. So now the other thing that I want you to know is, you see right there, Channel 2 News, embrace the news media, embrace the media, because had it not been for 4 stations in Tulsa and 1 station in Fort Smith, and of course the sister stations in Oklahoma City ran these news accounts too. Had it not been for them just dogging me and wanting interviews, I looked like crud on many of those interviews, because I was down there mucking out. I was there with boots on, jeans on, and I mean mud boots on. And they were following me around and I was showing them the devastation. And then that went across the United States, the devastation. And then all of these donations started coming in. We had several individuals that had some type of may have had some type of relationship with the Weber's Falls, that were sending in phenomenal donations. It just humbled me, the kindness. When you give up on humanity, let something like this happen to you, because there are good individuals. We had One Oak donated around $150,000. Staghorn Petroleum gave us all of our teachers' desks. We probably had around $125,000 worth of donations. They called us up and said, "Hey, we've got an office that's closed and we're about to destroy all of this office furniture. Could you use it?" Oh my goodness. Yes, we didn't have any furniture. We saved very little furniture, because the mold, if you have any wood, the mold penetrates the wood. And so we had very little. Muskogee schools, Idabel schools, the McAllister schools. There are so many schools, and I've left some off. Keys. So many schools donated school furniture, books. Tulsa Public School just had sent us so many textbooks that had never been used, that there's no way that we would have been able to come back. And I'm a graduate of Weber's Falls schools. So when people said, "Well, are you going to have school next year?" And I said, "Well, yeah, we're going to have school next year. Yeah, we're going to start after Labor Day. We're going to have to postpone school starting about a month, but we're going to start after Labor Day." Oh my goodness. That was just God speaking through me, because I guarantee, had I really took time to start looking at the cost, especially when I didn't realize that my property insurance would cover it, oh my goodness, there's no way. I would have said there's no way. But I'm a warrior through and through. We were going to have school, and we were able to pull that up. So I guess the things that I would say is, one, know what your insurance coverage is and make sure that you are covered. Two, embrace the media. Three, have good relationships with your insurance adjuster. Four, have relationships with all of those superintendents out there because they come through for you. Um, and then also the student organizations, and make sure that you always follow up with a thank you. And I want to thank everyone that was part of this. You know, some of you were very quiet with it, and yet you followed through. Thank you so much. You have blessed Weber's Falls schools, and here we are. We are up and running. We didn't come the Tuesday after Labor Day, but we did come the following Monday. That's when we opened. Who would have thought you could put what, about 5 different bond issues back together in 3 months? And we did it.
Dr. Swearingen, I appreciate you so much. Your passion, and we could hear your resiliency and your determination. I mean, I heard that today, and I heard it the other day too. Anyway, I love it. We did have a couple questions come through, and I want to be very cognizant of everybody's time, but I feel like this one is really important. You mentioned those donations and volunteers. That's really in the same bucket, right? How do
Yes.
you handle, or what advice might you give as volunteers start coming out of the woodwork, and so do the donations? How do you handle the logistics of that, or what does that look like, or what did it look like for you at Weber's Falls?
Well, most of our volunteers, we did make sure that we had a sign-in sheet. We also had a release form that we asked them to fill out. Always make sure that you cover everything, because you are talking about, you know, slippery floors. Make sure that you have a release form signed and that you do have a check-in location, that you get together before you even start, and have someone in charge. Like, and by the way, I don't even remember what his real name was, but his name was Spank. Spank took over and he said, this group needs to go here, this group needs to go here, because we could send them to so many different buildings on our facility or on our campus. So.
No, that's perfect. And then just
Oh,
one last comment.
just a second. As far as the donations, Armstrong Bank did set up a place where they could directly donate to them, and they kept track of that. But most of the donations did come through. They just sent it to the school, and we kept track of every donation sent, a thank you card or thank you letter to those individuals. Oh, goodness. Do not forget to send out thank you cards and letters to those individuals. We had some donations that the donors wanted to be anonymous. So, you know, we recognized many of our donors on our Facebook page, but there were those that just wanted to be anonymous, and you need to respect that for them.
Dixie, thank you. There's so many details and so much. I appreciate that. And then just one last comment. I heard you found maybe 2 champions during that crisis. And if we have superintendents on the call, I know that they probably realize or understand how important it would be to find those champions, be able to demonstrate that they have some kind of training or background, and plug them in so that you can take care of what you take care of best, right? And that's the leadership in for that, on that big level view, getting people paid, getting school back started. I appreciate that story. And then one quick pitch for that. Our office, we do have some training very specific to this so that you can find your champions. I hope the emergency managers, if you're listening out there, as well as the education world, holler at us about that. Find out more. I think that's very important to you guys. Dixie, thank you so much.
John, one thing that I didn't mention is whenever you start getting donations from the schools, you know, of the school furniture, I turned that over to my principal, Lisa Ward. She did a great job in that. But, you know, I just wanted to make sure you also need someone that will take care of that part of it. So I'm sorry, go on.
Oh, you're great. Thank you so much. Um, now I'd like to introduce you guys to our next speaker. This is David Ball, Director of Emergency Management for the city of Guthrie and Logan County. Director Ball, he's been in his current position for more than 12 years now, and he has worked in many disasters and emergency incidents, to include probably the most recent, especially in central Oklahoma here, the ice storm. And I think that was just multiplied with, dealing with the dreaded COVID. And so, Director Ball, we'd love to hear your story. Thank you, sir, for being on today.
Thank you for the opportunity to come. Good afternoon, everybody. Hey, you'll go to the next slide, please. All right, so with COVID-19 virus has been so many things that were unknown. When this all first started back in March, there was not a guidebook on the shelf to pull out and read over. I did not know anyone that I could call and ask how they handled this, as no one had been through a pandemic recently. One of the things that we started here in Logan County is a first responders bi-weekly conference call. This has included our local fire, police departments, our sheriff, our school districts, local health department, local hospital, and local nursing homes. We're still doing this today as our group finds value in the information shared from the health department and others on our local call. If your county is doing this and you have not been a part of something like this in the past, I would encourage you to be a part of those calls. With the ice storm, being without power was the biggest challenge for everyone, not just here in Logan County, but across the state. You can't have school without power, and you can't expect kids to do online work without power. Guthrie Public Schools was out for 5 days here locally with no power. If you go to the next slide, please. I believe this picture was taken on one of the first few days of school this past September at Fogarty School. This is Guthrie Public Schools Superintendent, Dr. Mike Simpson. I have Coyle, Crescent, Guthrie, and Mulhall Orlando School District buildings located in Logan County. I know all of these superintendents, except for the new superintendent at Coyle that just started this school year. He is new this year and I've not been able to meet with him in person yet, but I've spoken with our high school principals several times. Build those relationships with others in your school district, along with the other school districts in your county. Next slide, please. Because of the relationships that I have with Guthrie Public Schools, when the first round of school PPE items was ready for pickup in Oklahoma City, I only had to make one phone call, and Guthrie Public Schools was more than willing to help me get all of those PPE items for Logan County schools back to their warehouse. Guthrie Public Schools supplied the band, box, truck, and a driver. Him and I then were able to go to Oklahoma City and pick everything up in one trip. If I would have had to have done it by myself, it would have taken me at least 3 trips to Oklahoma City and back for me to get all of our PPE items back for our schools in Logan County. Again, working with Guthrie Public Schools, they allowed one of their secretaries to help with the sorting of these PPE items. On that first shipment, we received about 10,426 adult and child face masks, 14,700 assistant-sized gloves, 275 face shields, and 7,300 gowns. Our second round of school PPE items came last month. Again, Guthrie Public Schools offered to help me with these items brought back to Logan County. But this time we only received 1 pallet and I was able to get everything back in my county truck in one trip. This 1 pallet had about 10,500 adult and child face masks and some hand sanitizer. After both rounds of PPE, I was able to deliver all of those items to the school districts at Coyle, Crescent, and Mulhall Orlando, saving them time from having to come to Guthrie to pick up their items or even going to Oklahoma City to get their items. Next slide, please. With our recent ice storm, I was able to work with OEM, or Oklahoma Emergency Management, to request some generators. One went to the city of Crescent for a shelter warming location in Crescent. One generator went to Cashion for their fire department. They also moved their police department and ambulance service to their fire station while the power was out in Cashion. About this same time, Coyle needed a generator for one of their lift stations, but OEM was out of generators. I was able to get Coyle in touch with the rental company, and they were able to rent one to keep their lift station going. Then on the morning of November 2nd, I had a call from our local election board saying that they have 4 polling sites without power here in town or in the county. OG&E was able to get the power back to 3 of those sites. In working with OEM, again, we were able to get an 80 kW generator brought to Guthrie, hooked up at the Housing Authority. If you had voted there on the 3rd of November, you probably never knew that building was ran by generator on that day. Next slide, please. I think of all the slides, this one and the next one's probably the most important 2 slides to me, at least. Try to get out and meet others in your school district and your county. It is so much better to meet someone for the first time when nothing major has happened than in the middle of the night because you're now facing a major incident that has just happened to one of your school buildings. I would challenge each of you on today's call to get to know your local fire chief, police chief, or sheriff, and more importantly, your local city or county emergency manager. Here in Logan County, we have what's called an LEPC group, which is Local Emergency Planning Commission Group. We meet bi-monthly. We usually have about 10 to 15 people in attendance at those meetings. Our meetings are always open to any of our school districts in our county that would like to attend. For our meetings, this does not have to be the superintendent. Sending a representative from your school that can go back and share information works great as well. I would also encourage you to reach out to your local fire or police chief and emergency manager and ask about any exercises that your school district could be a part of. This is another great way to get to know others in your area. A few years ago, we were able to do a full-scale exercise in the parking lot at Guthrie High School. We had ag and drama students playing the parts of a DUI driver hitting another car. All the juniors and seniors attended this exercise the Friday before prom. This was a community-wide exercise as we had Guthrie Fire send an ambulance and a rescue unit, Guthrie Police Department, and Oklahoma Highway Patrol. A local wrecker service provided the 2 wrecked cars. Metaflight sent a helicopter to transport one of the ag kids to our local hospital. We even had one of our local funeral homes help out with this. This exercise took a lot of planning, but I felt we were able to possibly save a life or 2 because of everybody's partnership in doing this exercise. We were not able to do this exercise this last spring due to COVID, but we hope to have it this next spring before prom if things are able to open back up. Find out what works best for you to find your seat at your local table for your school district. Next slide, please. Disaster assistance. Like Dr. Swearingen mentioned earlier, please don't rely on FEMA or the state to be your insurance coverage. Stay current on your insurance policies. But if you've had damages related to a big storm event, please let your city or county EM know what has happened. There might be some FEMA reimbursement available if you've had flood or storm damage, and that storm event is approved by the president in a FEMA declaration. If this happens, FEMA would typically pay 75% of certain expenses, then the state would pay 12.5%, leaving your school district out 12.5%. This process does not happen very fast, but is an option that might help out in a major time of need. Hazard mitigation plans. Each county should hopefully have a FEMA-approved hazard mitigation plan. Do you know if your school district has or is part of a city or county plan? If you have or are part of a hazard mitigation plan, there are grant opportunities that could really benefit your students and your school district. A couple of examples would be safe room grants and window tinting that could help with the hail breaking through windows, but also help with heat in the summertime. I know a few years ago, Crescent Public Schools received about $1 million grant for a safe room. This would not have been an option if they were not part of Logan County Hazard Mitigation Plan. In my opinion, it is your best judgment to be a part of a city or county plan if you're able to do that. Basically, someone from your school district would need to attend about 3 meetings, planning meetings, when the city county mitigation plan is being done or updated. So in closing, since we are talking about schools, I'm going to give each of you a homework assignment today. There's no due date and no grade will be assigned, but I challenge each of you on this call today or that hear this in the future to do these 2 things by the end of January 2021. Number 1, reach out to your local emergency manager and get to know them. There are things that they'll be able to help you with, and you could probably help them with things as well. It's a two-way street. Your second homework assignment, find out if your school's district is part of a local hazard mitigation plan. I think there will be more information about this coming out to you all very soon. Thank you for your time today and the opportunity to be able to speak with you this afternoon.
David, thank you so much. We have really tried very hard to keep our audience at about 45 minutes typically, and we're hitting that time. So I'm going to be very careful. I want to make one comment and I want one question for you. But I would remind the audience, if you have further questions or if you have anything, fire away at us, email, reach out and call us. Anybody here would be very glad to answer your questions, work with you more. I promise. How important it is. Wow, that was just to echo that, right? You heard that from Dr. Swearingen and you heard it from Director Ball, to make that connection. If above all, you make that connection with your local emergency manager. If you haven't done that, I hope that the emergency managers on the call are reaching out, and I hope the school folks on the call are doing the same. And we're going to meet in the middle. We're going to be at a happier place on the next disaster. So, David, really, I think what it boils down to, we get a lot of comments, a lot of questions about that hazard mitigation plan. How can they get FEMA money, storm shelters, you name it, the next state declared disaster, where does the school fit in? And I think there's a lot of confusion. And I know that OEM and OSDE have partnered for a more deeper dive into this. It looks like that's going to be December 10th at 1:30. We're going to send out more information through the admin newsletter. We're going to put it up on the website. I know OEM is going to push out too, but I think this is where a lot of those questions are going to get answered. But if you had to tell us today, what would be your advice to them as far as who could help them? I mean, do they start with OEM? Do they start with their local emergency manager? Where do they even start with finding out if they're covered?
I would say your best bet would be start with your local emergency manager. They should be able to tell you if your local emergency manager has a FEMA approved plan, and if that your school district is part of that plan.
Perfect. But unless there is a plan that umbrellas them, if you will, they would not be eligible. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes, they have to be part of a plan or have to have their own plan. And unless you're just one of probably the largest school districts in the state, I believe it would be to your benefit to be a part of someone else's plan. But yeah, there's no grant opportunities for your school district or your county or your city if you do not have a FEMA approved hazard mitigation plan. You can't get any grants. Then also, if we had a major disaster, your school district wouldn't be covered in a presidential disaster, it's my understanding, without a FEMA approved plan as well.
Okay, thank you. Excellent. I think this just kind of verifies or bolds the need to make those communication steps, make those partnerships. I appreciate everyone so much. In closing, I do want to give a shout out to Michael Ann Ooten. You can see her there on our this is our team at OSDE, but Michael Ann, she put this together. She designed this. I hope that everyone would just kind of join me in prayers for her. She really wasn't feeling well enough to be with us today, to be honest with you. So we hope that you're going to be okay, Michael Ann, and I'm sending prayers your way. Michael Ann is our liaison here at the Department of Ed to connect with you on a lot of these questions and a lot of what was discussed today. So definitely reach out to her, send her an email, give her a phone call. She can help. Very knowledgeable. So guys, we are a little past our time. Thank you so much to our speakers, Dr. Swearingen, Director Ball. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. And Jason, thanks for driving the ship. Mr. Gary Hurst, take us away, sir.